Why is it so hard to relate to your family? This is a question that I was talking with a friend about today. And I wanted to record a video because I hear this from a lot of people that are involved in conscious communication, whether it's authentic relating or nonviolent communication or the host of other connection practices that are out there these days. We learn these amazing tools and then we try to go home and use them, and people go, "What the actual F is this?" Like, why are you talking in that weird language? Just be normal with me. Anyone heard that one before? Um, I have tons of experiences with this from my own family, most notably the year when. So, one thing that happens is like maybe some people in your family want you to do this authentic communication thing with them and others don't. I remember one year going home to my family, and my uncle really wanted me to do some games and some communication things with my family at Thanksgiving, to kind of spice up the conversation and get people more revealed and more communicative with each other. So I was like, okay, sure. And at dinner, I said, hey, I'd love to go around and maybe have each person say, like, what's been a highlight moment of your year so far? Something that was really exciting to you or that you were really proud of. And people loved it. It felt like everyone was really engaged. The energy started waning a little bit, my aunt actually started keeping it going. It was like, hey, anyone else have a story? We haven't heard from anyone yet. I was so excited about it. And the next day, my brother took me aside and went, can't you just be normal? Like, why do you always have to screw up the conversation? Like, why can't you get curious about other people instead of always interjecting your own thing? And it was really painful for me because I was like, wow, that was my heart that I put out there. Thanks. And it made me realize why in past years it had been so hard for me to bring these practices at all. And that's kind of what I want to talk about because I'm getting some ideas about what can resolve this dynamic. But the first thing I want to talk about is like, why is this so hard? And I want to use a metaphor I use a lot, of a cell in an organism. A cell has a wall around it. It has its own ecosystem. And the cell wants to preserve itself. A family is like a cell. Really, everything are like these holons of experience. Cells make up larger, kind of not molecules. Cells make up larger organisms, which become humans, and the system of parts gains a complexity that the individual components don't have. These are emergent properties. A cell itself, if you just put a whole ton of cells together, it's actually the ways that they interact that form what it is to be a human. So a family is like this too. A family has cells, which is made up of different individuals, and it also has the ways that they interact. And that cell wants to protect itself. And when somebody, even if it's someone within the cell, comes in with a new set of practices or tools or way of being, that cell goes, okay, intruder. We need to create antibodies. And those antibodies can look like sarcasm, ostracism, cruelty, um, demeaning comments, avoidance. There's all sorts of ways that this can look. So, we have these ways of once I certainly learned more conscious relating techniques, I really wanted to do that with my family. This was like the place where I learned my communication techniques in the first place. Like, it's where I most want to connect. I want to like feel my grandma. I want to be able to like touch her heart and like feel her love, and I can't or couldn't. And it's because whenever I came to my grandma, I was like, hey, I've got this really cool new thing. Let's play this game. Let's try this technique. Would you tell me about your feelings? And it was like she had to produce antibodies to push me away. Because not only was I bringing in a new set of techniques, I was also bringing in a new role. Like, I'm the granddaughter in the family. I'm the second youngest of the family. It's not my role to be bringing something new. And that's true in almost any family. It's like we stratify into these roles. Like, one person is the jokester, one person is the caretaker, one person is the organizer, whatever it is. And these are nuanced, but at the same time, whenever somebody starts to change their role, it throws off the dynamic of the entire family. And we like equilibrium. Our minds aren't built for a lot of chaos, and our systems aren't built for a lot of chaos. They try to deal with them, but there's a reason we have to have all these change management things in organizations, because we don't manage change well. And So in families, you're A, changing a role, and you're B, changing techniques in such a way that's going to generate these like cultural antibodies. And the way I've been thinking about it lately is the way to stop that from happening is to come to the cell, come to the family organism from the inside, to match the organism's language first and then change it. So, what would make it interesting to your family to have a different communication pattern? One way is to find if there's a crisis moment that arises. Like, say there's a conflict between your mom and your dad. That's a moment where they might be a little more vulnerable if they trust you to help. So something shakes up the family dynamic. It's usually not even a fight because a fight's internal, but somebody dies, somebody is ill. There's a crisis like COVID right now where everybody's a little bit outside of their norm and it's possible for something new to come in. The equilibrium's already been shaken up. So that's one place you could say, hey, I know it seems like everything's a little bit different for us right now. And I think that as a family, we could band together and support each other in it. I have some ideas for what that could look like. Is anyone interested in trying them? And then you could say, okay, let's just get on Zoom together next week, and I'm just going to try a couple of like little games and practices that I know that could maybe help us support each other in this time. Maybe you play a curiosity game or a hot seat game, um, or something where each person just has 3 minutes to talk about whatever they're experiencing, and the rest of the family can ask questions or reflect. That's a super simple one. Or you just open up the space for people to speak. Even changing the container and context can already shake up a lot of things in the family dynamic. Just like, let's get out of grandma's house. If we're on Zoom, there's already a lot of potential. So that's one thing, is a crisis can shake things up. The other is to make it clear like what your capacities are, and basically be like, hey, like, I've gotten trained in these new tools of nonviolent communication. So like if you're running into problems, like I'd love to just practice, like come and ask me about it. So you open the door for them to come to you rather than the other way around. Another thing is to speak their language. So communication tools, we think of them a lot of the time as I'm learning this so I can communicate myself better. But the real value of these tools is often so we can listen to how other people are speaking to us. What language are they speaking? I was trying to categorize this today, and I was thinking about like you have the love languages, right? Like touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, whatever the other two are, um, gifts, quality time. I knew that. And then there may also be relating languages. Like for some people, it's sarcasm and humor, curiosity, empathy, storytelling. Um, and of course, I'm going to forget the last one. But there's like kind of relatively 5 of these, and that I'm thinking of, and I'll brainstorm more as time goes on. But if you can meet each person in the language that they have, like your uncle comes at you with a snide comment when you try to get close to him, instead of going, wow, that hurt my feelings. I'd really like to know what was happening for you. You'd be like, yeah, that's a great way to respond to vulnerability. You have any other ideas? And it seems mean, but a lot of the time this can actually be meeting someone where they're at much more than revealing your feelings, which is a tool, a technique. It's a particular way of relating. It's not the be all end all. Yes, maybe it's better for us to be able to speak from our feelings, but that requires a lot of trust. There's a reason it's vulnerability. Somebody else has to know that we're safe enough to open up like that. And unless we can speak to them first in their own words, they're not going to be able to do that. So earning trust is a big thing. Getting consent in the family system is a big thing. So these are just kind of some thoughts about why it can be so hard to relate with your family. And I'd love to hear your comments. And if you want to play some of the games, there's a games manual available at authrev.org, AUTHREV.org, that has a whole ton of these that maybe you can try out with your family. Let me know how it goes.